For over a century, we've stared at the stone terraces of Machu Picchu and thought we knew its story. A royal retreat, a sacred observatory, maybe even a secret fortress. But in 2025, a breakthrough shattered that neat, comfortable narrative. Because it turns out, the Inca didn't build this wonder despite its extreme, dangerous location. They built it because of it. It wasn't just perched on a mountain for prestige or mystery. It was anchored to a secret that had been hiding beneath the very stones for 500 years. And when scientists finally saw it, they realized Machu Picchu isn't what we thought at all. Hidden beneath the temples, plazas, and terraces is an unseen design, a lattice of natural cracks and faults, etched into the granite heart of the mountain. This wasn't an obstacle the Inca had to overcome. It was their advantage. Those very fractures became silent allies, offering stone for construction, channels for fresh water, and a stable foundation that anchored the city in place. Recent findings don't just resolve a mystery that has lingered for over a century. They reshape our entire view of Inca ingenuity. The long-standing mystery. When Hiram Bingham introduced Machu Picchu to the wider world in 1911, it left historians and archaeologists both awestruck and perplexed. Why choose this place? Balanced 2,430 meters above sea level on a narrow spine of rock between the summits of Machu Picchu and Huayna Picchu, the city grips cliffs that drop almost 500 meters to the churning waters of the Urubamba River far below. No major roads connected it to the outside world. No large neighboring settlements existed to supply labor or resources, and the surrounding terrain offered little in the way of fertile land to sustain a massive workforce. It was too isolated to be an administrative hub, too impractical to be a palace, too elaborate to be just a temple site. And while its inaccessibility made it defensible, the same could have been achieved in far easier locations. Even its agriculture was limited. Those dramatic terraces could feed some, but nowhere near the numbers a city this elaborate would seem to require. Over the decades, numerous theories have accumulated. Pachacuti's royal estate, a sacred astronomical center, a hidden military refuge, even mystical claims of ley lines or pilgrimage routes. The problem? They all assumed the Inca chose the site despite its challenges, that they were either prioritizing symbolism over practicality or willingly making their own lives harder for prestige. But the 2025 research flipped that question on its head. Maybe this impractical site wasn't a burden at all. Perhaps it offered hidden advantages so critical that no other location could match it. The 2025 breakthrough. This revelation came from an unlikely direction, not archaeology, but geology. Brazilian geologist Rualdo Menegat and his team used a combination of satellite imagery, ground-based sensors, and cutting-edge particle physics to look beneath the surface. What they found was a tectonic X. Two major fault systems, one running northeast-southwest, the other northwest-southeast, crossing directly under the city's core. At first glance, that sounds like a construction nightmare, but the more the data piled up, the more it became clear. The Inca were looking for exactly this. Seeing the invisible. The investigation started with high-resolution satellite mapping. From above, subtle lines in the landscape revealed long fracture systems, some stretching over 150 kilometers, controlling the shape of valleys and rivers. Next came ground-penetrating radar, sending pulses into the earth and mapping buried walls, foundations, and bedrock shapes with astonishing clarity. Electrical resistivity tomography followed, detecting water-bearing fractures hidden underground. But the real showstopper was muon tomography, tracking cosmic particles as they passed through the mountain itself, building a 3D density model of the ridge. The result? An underground map showing not just random cracks, but a perfectly aligned fracture network, mirrored by the layout of the city above. Buildings, plazas, staircases, all tracing the geometry of the faults. Machu Picchu wasn't built on top of its geology by coincidence, it was designed around it. The investigation started with high-resolution satellite mapping. From above, subtle lines in the landscape revealed long fracture systems, some stretching over 150 kilometers, controlling the shape of valleys and rivers. Next came ground-penetrating radar, sending pulses into the earth and mapping buried walls, foundations, and bedrock shapes with astonishing clarity. Electrical resistivity tomography followed, detecting water-bearing fractures hidden underground. But the real showstopper was muon tomography, tracking cosmic particles as they passed through the mountain itself, building a 3D density model of the ridge. The result? An underground map showing not just random cracks, but a perfectly aligned fracture network, mirrored by the layout of the city above. Buildings, plazas, staircases, all tracing the geometry of the faults. Machu Picchu wasn't built on top of its geology by coincidence, it was designed around it. Why this mattered to the Incas? The Incas were master builders, but they weren't working with steel tools or industrial machinery. Every block had to be cut, shaped, and placed by hand using hammerstones, chisels, and abrasives. Building Machu Picchu from solid granite would have been almost impossible, unless the mountain had already done half the work for it. Advantage 1. A natural quarry. The constant tectonic stress along those fault lines had fractured the granite into manageable blocks. Some even broke along geometric planes, making them perfect for the Incas' mortarless ashlar style. Instead of carving each stone from scratch, they could split, shape, and fit them together like a giant puzzle. Advantage 2. A built-in water source. Those same fractures worked like hidden aqueducts, channeling rainwater and snowmelt from higher peaks into a perennial spring right near the city. In an environment where water could mean life or death, this was gold. The Inca built a precision-engineered canal system, 749 meters long, to carry that water into the city, feeding 16 fountains in sequence. The first fountain, reserved for the emperor himself. Advantage 3. Perfect drainage and slope stability. Machu Picchu sits in one of the wettest parts of the Andes with nearly 2,000 millimeters of rain a year. On steep slopes, that's a recipe for landslides, unless you have a genius drainage plan. The Inca used the fractured bedrock as a natural filter, then layered crushed stone, gravel, and sand beneath every structure. 60% of the construction effort went underground, creating a drainage system so effective that the site has stood for over 5 centuries without catastrophic collapse. A pattern across the empire. Once the team recognized this geological pragmatic model, something remarkable happened. They started seeing it everywhere. This wasn't random chance. It was an intentional, calculated imperial strategy repeated across the Andes like a hidden blueprint. The Inca didn't have access to modern geological science, yet they possessed something equally powerful: generations of keen observation. They noticed that certain valleys produced abundant springs, that water seeped from particular rock faces, and that mountains with fractured slopes provided both stability and stone. By following the trails of these springs up mountainsides, they could locate fracture zones, natural highways of water and energy beneath the earth. These sites offered strategic advantages: a steady water supply, access to quality building stone, and naturally defensible terrain. But there was also a spiritual dimension. Such places often held sacred meaning, aligning with their cosmology and myths. This was ethnogeology in action, practical earth science embedded into their culture, passed down through language, ritual, and craft. The empire wasn't just built on the land, it was built with the land, its very geology shaping the Inca world. And the practical. Here's the part that makes the discovery even more fascinating. In the Inca worldview, practicality and spirituality weren't separate realms to be balanced. They were threads of the same fabric. The mountains surrounding them weren't inert piles of rock. They were apus, sacred beings with will and presence, guardians of valleys and rivers, givers and takers of life. The earth beneath their feet was Pachamama, the great mother who nourished, protected, and demanded respect in return. A mountain that yielded solid stone for shelter, fresh water from hidden springs, and stability against storms was not merely a resource. It was a divine ally. Choosing such a site for a city like Machu Picchu was not about conquering nature, but about entering into Aini, the sacred principle of reciprocity. The Inca believed that by honoring the mountain's gifts, shaping its rock into walls, channeling its water into fountains, aligning structures with its contours, they were fulfilling their side of the cosmic exchange. That's why this new geological insight doesn't diminish the sacred site theory at all. It deepens it. The fault lines and fractures were not just engineering conveniences. They were physical expressions of the mountain's living energy. For the Inca, building here meant working in harmony with forces both visible and unseen, a partnership that was as much about reverence as it was about survival. In their eyes, every stone laid was both a technical choice and a prayer. A city re-understood. For 100 years, we looked at Machu Picchu and saw a paradox, a city in the clouds that defied reason. Now we see the opposite. It wasn't built in defiance of nature, but in perfect harmony with it. The faults and fractures weren't flaws to be overcome. They were the very reason the site was chosen. This changes how we understand Inca architecture, engineering, and even empire building itself. They didn't conquer the Andes. They listened to it, learned from it, and built in places where the earth itself offered every advantage. Machu Picchu isn't what we thought. It's not just a masterpiece of stonework, but a masterpiece of location. Its beauty isn't just in what we see above ground, but in the invisible partnership beneath our feet. And that might be the real secret that kept it standing for over 5 centuries. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more.